Hi, everybody. My name is Shlomi Ron. I'm the CEO of the Visual Storytelling Institute, and it's great to see everybody again here at the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. And as you know, every month we are meeting a new visual storyteller expert that talk about different aspects of the craft of visual storytelling. And one of the things that I always want to talk about, we're talking about using visuals to sell our product and services. One of the most important things that you could ever do is really sell yourself. And before you even utter a single word or even write a single word on your LinkedIn profile, the first thing people will see is your headshot. And that's going to be your first impression. And that's the story they're going to tell themselves about who you are and what you're trying to do. So for this important topic today, I have a fantastic friend and an expert portrait photographer, Kirk Francis. Kirk and I know each other from back when we first did the Visual Storytelling Summit here in Miami. He also attended several programs that VSI has been doing, from our master classes to our full semester class at the Idea Center at the Miami-Dade College. So one of the things that I really like about Kirk yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I really liked about Kirk summary, this is what he says about his craft. Creating portraits that help people impact the difference they hope to make in the world is what gives me joy. And I think this is really a powerful statement. And with that, I'd like to welcome Kirk. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Shlomi.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So I'm, the first thing I probably would like to ask you is how you got into portrait photography. What was your backstory?
The backstory is kind of, I think a lot of people, in the sense that I had a little point and shoot, and I was trying to take pictures of my kids at their karate martial arts events, and I would hit the shutter, and then I would have nothing because they were over here by the time the shutter clicked.
Right.
And so I went out and I bought a nice fancy DSLR, and I was clicking away, and I was creating gigabytes, terabytes of photos, and they were all kind of not so great.
Oh yeah.
So that started me down the journey of education and going online and YouTube, and I found all the resources, and eventually stumbled upon Peter Hurley and Sal Sankata and Jared Poland, to name a few. Chase Jarvis, who also created creativelive.com, and just dived in, and I just enjoyed it so much. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn, and awesome. It's been an amazing journey.
No, that's great. Any particular reason why you decided to focus on portrait photography?
I mean, you say portrait photography, so I do portrait photography. I also do landscape. So that's the other passion that I have. I wish I could show you.
Right.
Actually, I'm going to show you. Here's a kind of a combination. One second, let me grab it. So this is a combination of kind of portrait with landscape.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so I love that as well, as mix the landscapes in with the portraits. But
that's awesome.
I have a passion for both. I like people. I think people are it's amazing when you actually read online and find out. I think it's within our DNA, because I just recently did a DNA test. I think we're all separated by less than 1% in our DNA, yet there's so much variety, right, among all of us. So I guess that's part of what I like. Awesome. I like to hear people's stories. I am truly interested in learning about other people and their story.
So speaking about stories, one of the common practice here at the Visual Storytelling Today podcast is I always ask my guest, what is your definition for visual storytelling?
My definition of visual storytelling is basically trying to communicate a feeling, a story, through just pictures and not necessarily words. There's so much that you can communicate without ever even saying a word. And I think back, I can't remember who had the video it was a video, it wasn't stills. And the video was about a couple of men sitting in an airport, and they were eating rolls. And the one guy who looked kind of not so well-to-do was eating the other guy's donuts and biscuits.
Oh, yeah.
And he kept eating them and kept eating them. And then they got to the very last one, and he went to go grab it, and the other guy grabbed it first. And he's looking at him really scowling, like, "What are you doing?" You know? And then the guy that he thought was stealing his biscuits broke it in half and gave it to him. And then he left to go catch his plane. And then the guy that thought his biscuits were being stolen decided, you know, had his phone call for his plane. He went and grabbed his bags. And then there's his bag of biscuits. So he had been actually the guy stealing the biscuits. I mean, and think about the story there. And it was amazing that all of that was done without any words, anything said. So it's an amazing thing. I guess that's kind of my definition of visual storytelling. There's so much to tell that if a good visual story, you don't have to use words.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. And especially the kind of work that you're doing is really fascinating, because you are selling, you know, the most important story, which is, you know, people's stories, you know, what's behind the face, even before, you know, people had a chance to read about a person. So I'm kind of curious, when you work with your clients and they would like to do a new headshot, what typically like a business objective they have in mind for this?
What is my client's objectives usually?
Yeah. Typically, what type of?
Most of the time, it's just basically stepping up their game, and sometimes I think they don't even know what that means. A lot of times, I know one of my clients. Actually, he's pictured right here. Adam Pacetti.
Yep.
He, you know, everybody puts masks on, right?
Sure.
And they're fearful for, you know, putting themselves out there, how they really are. And what I was able to do with Adam was get him build up his confidence and his comfort in front of the camera, and kind of let himself out and be the person he wants to be in that photo, and have that photo actually help portray how he really wants to be portrayed. And sometimes people are fearful of letting that out. And so that's what ends up kind of, you know, maybe it's not an objective, but it ends up kind of coming out of that. I think the other is just stepping up their game. I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, working with a professional and finding out, you know, well, what can he do for me with my portrait. One of the goals that I have is an objective is making sure that the person is conveyed in a more confident, influential, and likable manner, or a combination of those, and then kind of going over all of those kinds of attributes, right, that you might pick up from a photo, and finding which one of those are maybe more important for somebody. Might feel approachability is more important for them, but maybe somebody else wants to be more influential. It's really hard to get them all kind of elevated at the same time. It is possible, and but I, you know, try to have those conversations with people to find out what they're really trying to say.
So it sounds like typically when you say step up their game, you know, it could be that the photo would land on their LinkedIn profile. It might go to their personal website, collaterals, and so forth. So it's really part of their personal marketing strategy, right?
Yeah, part of their branding, and that's yeah, and that's kind of, then I try to have conversations with them to, you know, you can do a headshot, but then maybe you want to do, this is kind of more of a branding shot,
right?
And I have a couple of different things that I'm working on from a marketing perspective. What I'm trying to put out there is, you know, brand your action and brand your hustle. So, you know, depending on what you're doing, and I think it's really important to portray somebody in a portrait that really communicates who they are. If someone's very spiritual, maybe I just actually did a portrait of someone, and you know, he's a spiritual individual, and I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But it kind of convey. I mean, what does that convey about this person?
Yeah, right? It looks like he's holding his hand against his heart. So I guess
he's kind of bowing a little bit. He's got his eyes closed. So
Hmm.
it conveys that he is kind of a more mindful, spiritual
Yep.
type of person. It shows that, if you look closely, you can tell that he's Jewish.
Got it.
So you can pick up on that as well, as far as even
Right.
wardrobe.
So
And
tell me,
definitely,
so tell me, now they understand a little bit about, the business objective of your clients, the need to step up their game and to kind of create their own brand, so to speak. So can you tell us a little bit about how the end-to-end process looks like? How do you work with your clients? Just to kind of get a feel, because again, our audience is comprised of entrepreneurs and marketers, people that looking
Mhm.
to kind of learn how to use visual storytelling in different aspects. So I'm kind of curious how you do it.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what they're kind of signing up for
Uh-huh.
initially. Some folks are strictly signing up for a headshot, and that's all they're looking for.
Right.
And that kind of a process, again, we still have those conversations on what are you trying to convey, what's really important for you in your headshot, and then it's basically just kind of setting them up. I prep them with a few videos that I link them to. One of the other very important things, again, has to do with the concept of what are you trying to convey. I mean, maybe you're working in the holistic area, so holistic harmony is something you want to communicate. So maybe take a look at, I want to be red, that powerful red color, or you
Uh-huh.
want those blacks and grays, or maybe you're more for greens, yellows, oranges, purples,
So
and
you do
with
like an
those.
interview. You do like an interview to get a sense of who they are, their backstory, and as you said, what's most important to them.
That's the goal.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Got
I
it.
also like to get a bio. I like to get all of
Right.
their social contact information from them during those interviews, or at least put that out there that's going to be required. And then obviously then there's all the prep work, making sure you're moisturized good and those kinds of things. Making sure you bring enough wardrobe choices. I mean, you
Absolutely.
never can bring enough. Um, I'll just skip to another photo here. This was a photo shoot. This is more of a branding shoot that I did.
Uh-huh.
But when you look through, this is another spiritual individual. But if you look through here, let's see if I'm going the right way. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Wait a minute. I'm going the wrong way. Okay. So I'm going fast, and I know there's a reflection there, but
Right.
you're getting an idea of all the wardrobe changes.
I say no for sure.
I mean, he brought a suitcase. He brought a garbage bag. He brought
Yeah.
a duffel bag. He had different shoes. He had different pants. He had jackets, shirts,
What
t-shirts.
about what about location? Do you do any specific location sets, or you typically do it on the studio?
We do most of the things in the studio, but we have a studio next door that we're able to rent.
I
That's where
see.
that picture was taken.
Right.
Um, those pictures I just flipped to very quickly. We're taking here locally,
Mhm.
and I've done stuff up in Palm Beach and Miami as well. So yeah, I do
Got
it
it.
depends on what they're after. Some people want to be identified with either Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, Miami as from a location perspective. So that's part of their brand. I am Miami. I'm in Miami, so that makes sense to be photographed at those locations that will communicate that that's where they're at.
So that's very interesting, Kirk. You talked about the location. Are there any other tactics you used as part of your process?
Oh yeah, we talked about kind of the prep and how to get started, finding out what the intention of the client is. But there's also part of the process, the actual in the session process. And so one of the things that I utilize in session is I shoot to a computer, and
Mhm.
we'll shoot a few photos, and then we'll go back. We'll kind of see how things are going. Are we heading in the right direction? I'll also point out and coach kind of on what the client's doing and how we can improve, and they can also point out what they like and don't like. And we kind of rinse and repeat that process. So at the end of the session, before the client leaves, they actually
Uh-huh.
know what they're going to get. They're going to have, we're going to edit together the pictures down, and they're going to select their selected images that we're going to deliver, send them to retouch, and then deliver them digitally from that
Actually,
point
come to
forward.
think of it, you actually did a great job doing my headshot. And I remember at the end of the session, you actually ended up with about 30, 40 pictures for us to look at and kind of compare and contrast and pick really the top winners. And then from the top winners, you kind of create almost like a book, right?
Right. And then the other thing that's important, if you may not remember, but that's the reason why I mentioned in the beginning, I asked for their bio or their social
Right.
media links and stuff like that. I actually embed that in the metadata of their images. So when they do get delivered, all that information is going to go with them. So wherever they might use those images, that information can be picked up and direct folks to their bio, to their other social links, wherever they may post it. And so that information stays with the image. Unless, obviously you can strip that out, but it's ideal to have it embedded in there on your original image, so that when somebody, you're going to go speak at a conference, you shoot them a photo. In that photo, it has all the information already included in it, almost kind of like a business card.
So this is also very good for SEO, right? Like if you put those images online. So
right, it's going to help with SEO as well. Correct.
Got it. Cool. So now that we understand a little bit about your process, do you get a sense of how success looks like? How do you measure success of successful photos? Do you get any feedback from your clients?
Yeah, wow. Definitely get some feedback from the clients. Usually it's a matter of, like, I just actually got a phone call today. And he's like, "Oh, I'm getting great feedback. You really taught me a lot about photography. There's a lot more to it than I thought there was."
Right.
His suggestion, and I'm going to take it, is a very good suggestion. It says you should be posting, pictures every day if you can, and just put a few sentences on, what are the eyes saying? What's the mouth doing? What's the pose doing? What's the lighting say? What's the color indicating? What is this image conveying for this individual versus somebody else? And start communicating all that I did in session, kind of outwardly in a little 5-minute post. So that was a really good phone call I got today, because he's very happy with the results of the session and all the images that came out of it.
Do you have any interesting example from the industry, successful photographers or things that you've noticed that are really killing it in portrait photography today?
Really killing it. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough question, because I'm not sure, because everybody has, where did it go? I don't have it right here in my hand. Yeah, here it is. Everybody's got one of these, right?
Right.
Everybody thinks that they're a photographer, and there's a lot more to it than just having a camera.
Yeah.
If you're a author of books, or you're an attorney, I have Word on my computer. That doesn't make me attorney or a writer.
Sure.
Correct. It's the same kind of concept. So, but I think that is one piece of my business that I'm wanting to work on, in the sense of what is the metrics to measure the success,
right,
of how do you attribute any success that they may have to the new image that they have, the profile image or cover photo. I'm not exactly sure how to do that. One of my clients is a scientist, and he was actually quite interested in that aspect of it. Is how do you measure it? I mean, because if you're looking at the audience, you have to know who the audience is that's judging this photo, and then what are their feelings towards it, and how is that impacting them, and how is that moving them to decisions that they may or may make.
Yeah, because I think, going back to what you said earlier, I think, if you look at the very simple use case of a LinkedIn profile, and if you do a good job for a client, and all of a sudden you start getting more LinkedIn invites, or there is a higher engagement to the content they publish, these are all indicators maybe for more openness.
So many factors involved with all of that. That's the how can you? It's hard to make that correlation.
That's true.
Maybe they're posting more often. Maybe they're involved in an engagement group.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to actually measure.
Right.
I think it's just. I think I don't think anybody could argue that it's definitely a formula for success
Mm-hmm.
to have a professional image like some of these here that you see
Yep.
behind me. One of the things I was going to share with you is, you tell me. I took a little bit of time and I went out and I dug up an old headshot of mine, um, and and this is on the level of being quite embarrassing, right? But there's a picture of me.
Uh-huh.
I got my
Yep.
camera. Got my hat on. I always wear a hat. I protect my head for
Yep.
definite reasons. That one's not too bad. This
So
was
these
actually this
these
is
are these are all you did them using your smartphone?
no. These are all done with a professional camera, but these are
Got
done.
it.
Now this one I'm going to tell you, this is the one I ended up going with. And what's interesting is when you look at some of these older ones, and you
Right.
look at the eyes. This is something that I've learned, right? Is trying to get that confidence factor up. And when you're like
Mm.
this and you're really scared, you don't have. So part of success in these is that my eyes, and see right here is called it's maybe hard to see, but I'm doing the schmile. So I'm smiling with my eyes and my mouth, and so that's probably why that picture worked really good. But then
Mm.
and then this is my new one,
Yeah.
and
It's more
I
artsy, I would say.
yeah, it's artsy. It fits more. It fits more in who I am and what I'm doing, right? And
Right.
that's part of what you want to communicate in your image. Is this guy an artist or is he a business guy or what is he? And I would say definitely this is more of an artist
Absolutely.
versus this guy here.
Yeah, this is like more an accountant, I would say.
Right. I mean, one of my favorite jackets. I still wear it. You'll see me wearing that.
Yep.
I wear different hats. But it's and how do you measure that? I mean, do I have more engagement because my photo? I mean, I have to tell you. I mean,
It's a full
maybe
package.
I should maybe measure it. I mean, I get invites and people will tell me,
Uh-huh.
I sent you a connection request because of your photo.
Yep.
And it has happened. And so then the question is, how many people are doing that aren't actually overtly saying that to me? And so how and the question is how do you try to track that metrics and how do you put science to
No,
that?
it's tough. I agree. I mean, it's a combination, I guess, of the image, the summary profile, and maybe some of the positions you held or holding in the present. It's a full package, but I think a lot of times to our discussion today is that when you look at the headshot, you already have you building preconceived impressions about who that person is based on your previous bag of experiences that you carry. You met a character like this one, so it triggers something in you to say, hey, I know this type of person. It must be fitting some certain profile in my head. Doesn't
Right.
mean it has to be true, but most people
Yeah.
operate like that.
Well, no, and there's a lot of science behind. There's actually a lot of science. There's a lot of study. There's studies out there actually saying how profile pictures don't indicate how the
Yep.
person actually is going to be.
Right.
Uh, and I think there's probably more, and that's actually one of the things suggestions that I do have when I do talk to clients is be as authentic as you can in present your image because when you do show up and people find out that image isn't representative of who you actually
Absolutely.
are, you're going to have some credibility issues potentially. And the things that these are very subtle. It's not a credibility issue like the person's going to be like front thinking, oh, I don't know if I can trust this guy. It's all built way back in our monkey
Yep.
brain, right?
Yeah,
It's all
yeah,
happening
yeah.
in the back, and the fact that um, the mind can. I think it was. I can't remember the name of the anthropologist. I can look it up here in just a second. But there's an anthropologist, and he says that there's up to I think 250,000 facial expressions,
Oh, wow.
and our brains actually can recognize those.
Yep.
Right? We can see the differences, just millimeters, maybe even smaller than that, from the movements. And so I just I wonder if how much of that does get communicated through that image. And then when
So
there's a mismatch, you know, how much is that communicated to the person's brain? And it's all kind of on a more of a subconscious level than a conscious level.
yeah, I'm a great believer in the concept of visual grammar or visual language, that especially, you know, when you look at portrait photography, I think I'm looking at the photos behind you.
Mm-hmm.
These are all photos that basically, you know, has some sense of language to them. You know, the way that lady, for example, tilts her head to the right. I guess it's different from the position that you are in the photo on top, where you're looking straight ahead.
Right.
So right there, you know, the position of the head has some messaging
Oh,
coupled.
definitely. The other thing I'm very careful and
Yeah,
one of the areas that I really focus on, believe it or not, is the camera height.
right.
Camera height can, if I shoot from a low angle,
Yeah,
I'm going to make something look more powerful. If I shoot down on them, I'm going to make them look weaker.
yeah, yeah.
And so, and then even your chin height up or down can have an impact on how well your confidence is. I mean, she's got a good eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she's got a good smile here. So she's got a very confident look,
Right.
and I think she's got a little bit of a smile, so she's approachable. People usually it's your mouth that's going to indicate your approachability, and your eyes are going to be confidence. Actually, eyes are confidence and approachability because you can schmize, right? You can schmize
Yeah,
with
yeah,
your
yeah,
eyes,
yeah, yeah. No,
and
absolutely. So that's what I'm talking about. I mean, there's so many factors here that you need to kind of
so
shape, you know, the position of the head, the position of the camera, the lighting. All these are coming together into communicate, as you said, you
final
know.
image. And so the question is, how do you back to that question, how do you measure that success of, is that a
Right.
successful image or not? And that's, I don't know exactly how to do that. So that's a good question. I need to present that to a lot of my own peers and find out, how do you, determine the success of an image and how impactful it's been for your clients.
I think it's probably has to do with, you know, what they're trying to accomplish in the first place. So if they tell you I need a headshot for my LinkedIn profile, it's different from I need a, you know, headshot for a brochure I'm working on. So it really depends on the context. Context is always
Right.
a critical determinant. So based on the context, I think you might argue that, you know, if we can take again back to the LinkedIn use case, that if you have a very crisp LinkedIn profile that is full of great information, both about yourself and the content that you're sharing with the community, and on top of that, you have a really professional headshots and maybe interesting cover image to go along with it. I think the full package itself, you know, can easily be
Right. And I
measured in a
think
sense of engagement and, you know, LinkedIn invites you get from strangers, because I think that's the best measure. I'm getting, you know, daily, not to kind of you know, brag or anything, but I'm getting, you know, invites from people and I don't have no idea who they are, but they, you know, say, hey, I check your profile, it looks interesting, I'd like to connect. So I think all these little things are small indicators that you have a really good package.
right. And I think that is the thing. I mean, is part, you got to make sure you have a good headline. You got to
Yeah,
have a profile photo. It makes
yeah,
sense to make use of that cover photo. It's a lot of real estate up there. So you got to
yeah,
make sure you're using that. And then you need the words that go along with it, and
right.
really utilize that headline words as well. So as you said, the whole packet. I mean, if you have no image out there, I think it's real difficult for people to,
Yeah,
first thing they're going to see, they're not going to read the words until they see the picture. The picture is what's going to draw them into the words.
absolutely.
So I don't want to take away from the words, but I do think the picture happens first, and then based on that reaction to the photo, to the cover photo, to the profile photo, then they're going to start digging in to the actual words, read the headline, and then dig into the actual I think summaries, what they call it.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So now that we got a little bit of an idea into the mechanics of what's going into creating a successful portrait photography, I know it's really a huge topic we can spend a lot of time on, but where do you see like this whole discipline is headed in the future? You know, visual storytelling harnessed to create effective, compelling portrait photography, or any marketing photography for that matter.
Well, I think where it's going in the future is that I think Brad Pitt. I wish I had the tear sheets of Brad Pitt. Peter Hurley has a video out there, and I'll see if I can't get you the link to that, where he's going through. He's showing a picture of Brad Pitt before whatever. I don't know who coached him, how he learned it. It's like Brad Pitt got on the program. Here he is before the program, and here he is after. And the reason why I mentioned Brad Pitt is that we're all almost actors out there. Look at us right now. We're doing video, right? And I think it's going to be really important going in the future is that all of the techniques that I teach people in a headset session, they're going to need to take those going forward when they're posing for their snapshots. A lot of the techniques that I teach, you can apply that to when you're standing there getting a snapshot, so that you're going to be presented in a more attractive way versus in an unattractive way. All these things are transferable. So as we become more social, as we're doing more video, and if you can take those techniques and apply them to every single aspect of your life where you're being seen, and it's, you know, if you read anything right now, it's a lot of it has to do with personal brand. It doesn't matter if you have a job with a corporation.
Right.
Have your own personal brand that you're building it and moving things forward, because the reality is you're not going to work in that job for the next 10, 20, 30 years like my parents did. My parents had the same job for over 30 years, both.
Work for life, right?
Work for life. It's not something that's happening today. I think there is having for some people, but the number of professions that allow for that kind of tenure is just changing, because the business landscape changes so quickly.
No, absolutely.
And direction of organizations change so quickly. You have to be prepared for that. So I think more and more people, and that's the reason why LinkedIn is so popular now, are getting on this, you know, building their personal brands. And part of building their personal brands is learning about the visuals that they have and that they're presenting out to the world. And I think as, you know, that kind of trajectory happens, we can more of a, what do they call it, like a freelance word for it. I don't know if it's freelance economy, but you understand what I'm saying. It's more almost
the gig economy.
That's what it is. So more of this gig economy, I think is going to become more and more prevalent, that people are going to be concerned about their personal brand and what kind of brand are they putting out there to the public. Well
said. Yeah, no, I totally agree with this. It's definitely something that anybody needs to, you know, address beyond the business they are leading. You know, it's all about, because at the end of the day, you know, they need to sell themselves first and then the product. So
right, and they're the product. And you know, and you know, one of my goals, and the reason why I'm here right now, is I want to elevate. I want to become one of those thought leaders when it comes to portrait photography, first impressions, and what all this means to the individual. And so, you know, if you're wanting to become a thought leader, you got to be seen. You got to be, you know, people got to see your picture and understand your story, or have that shtick, whatever that shtick is that you have, and develop that further, so that when people, oh yeah, I remember that guy, you know, get out there and be seen, and not be afraid to go out on video and do, you know, interviews like I'm doing right now. So that's
absolutely. So to kind of wrap up this great interview, I want to ask you, you know, because again, the audience is really comprised of marketers, entrepreneurs, and if we need to summarize, you know, maybe your top 3 tips for maximizing first impression in photography, what would you say?
Maximizing first impressions. I think the first thing is to be authentic. Authentic to yourself. I just shot a picture of my chiropractor, and he always wears a vest and a tie to work every day. what should I wear? You know, and he's like, he doesn't want to wear. I think we might have taken a few jackets pictures, but he wears a vest and a tie every day. That's what he wears. And so and I said, if that's what you wear, that's what you need to be. You know, different pieces of jewelry. I know I shot a actress recently, and I'm not a real big fan of real big jewelry, but I think it was a necklace or earrings. I can't remember what it was, but she's like, oh, that's my little thing that I wear.
Oh,
So,
right.
to all of my castings, so that like I've got a hat on. So she's like, oh, you know, when the casting team's talking to each other, oh, remember the guy with the hat, or remember the girl with that black necklace? And so she's like, I want to make sure that I have that black necklace, you know, pinned it in all of my headshots, so that when they're paging through the headshots, they're like, oh, that's the girl. That was the one I was talking about. And
So that's like her signature gimmick that you have.
Her signature gimmick, right? So I have a hat. She's got a necklace, whatever it is. Make sure. So my chiropractor is a vest and a tie. You know, be consistent with that, and that's, you know, that is part of your branding. And then I guess the other thing is that just you have to work on the facial aspect of it. There's, you know, the Peter Hurley squinch.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to call it Peter Hurley squinch because I think he even trademarked it. There's, or, you know, maybe it's the Tyler is it Tara Banks? Did she call it the schmize?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the mouth. And so, you know, trying to work and putting that all together. And it, like I said, the good example is take a look at where Brad Pitt was. And then he was consistently, I mean, every time you see him, he you know, he's on point on his look and how he is. And so I think it's, you know, learning all of that and then being able to present that, not just in the portrait session, but throughout your engagements, and learning how to use that on a daily basis.
So it's more about the behavioral aspect of how you position yourself out there in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's quite important, you know, making sure, you know, like I just gave a talk to
so basically you're saying, you just imagine you have a hovering camera, you know, following you everywhere, even though there's no camera, but you just need to be in a posing mode.
I don't know about posing, but I think it's important to be engaged. I just gave a talk about this first impressions, and what the most common thing that people recognize was eye contact. You know, I have a positive first impression, and people make really good eye contact with me. And what was really interesting, I was at the talk in the audience, and they made really good eye contact with the presenter. Such good, like, he actually came up to me after the talk and said, "You're one of like 5 people that I actually felt like I connected to."
Oh wow.
50. And so, you know,
that's always great to hear.
I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't, you know, on my phone and, you know, looking around. No, I was there. I was present. I was focused on what he was doing. And you know, and that's all kind of what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to make good eye contact, being present, showing us in our best mode, and then learning how that impacts people, and then being that way going forward.
You know? No, that's a great lesson, and I think it kind of transcends, you know, portrait photography. It's just you know, the big message of being yourself, keep it real, and with people.
Authenticity. I mean, if there's one thing that people can see through in a matter of a split second, it's inauthenticity. I mean, I think people pick up on it right away. That's
awesome. All right, Kirk, this has been a fantastic chat, and with a ton of information and tips for our audience about portrait photography and how they can really maximize first impression. Really want to thank you so much for your time today. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
The best way is my website. It's www.kirkfrancis.com. So it's Kirk, like the Captain Kirk of the Star Trek. And Francis like the Pope. So I say Captain Pope. So KIRKFRANCIS.
Awesome.
And I'm soon to have, I don't have it there yet, but soon to have a newsletter sign up. So be sure to sign up for the newsletter. Our first one that we're polishing off right now is going to talk about color theory. And so what do the
Awesome.
different colors talk, how do they speak to you? Like this is, it's kind of hard to see in the lighting here, but that's purple. So purple is imaginative, creative
Right.
color. Black is going to be more of a formal trust color, dark blues. Greens kind of
Oh, that's awesome.
like a harmonies, and then yellows are happiness, and reds are power. So all these different colors kind of speak
Yeah,
languages to people, and they pick up on it psychologically. And so that's going to be my first piece that I present.
that's important. Yeah. So thank you so much. And this is definitely everybody look up for a Kirk Francis upcoming newsletter, a great resource for photography and visual storytelling in general. And I hope to see everybody next time in our next show.
Visual Storytelling Today is recorded in Miami, Florida. The show is published exclusively by Visual Storytelling Institute. Learn more at visualstorytell.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on the iTunes Store. Until next time, don't let your big story wait to be told.